What's up, gamers? It's your boy JKon. Welcome to another video. Today is a very sad day, ladies and gentlemen, and the reason for that is because Viper has been nerfed. With today's patch notes being released, we have now confirmed that both Viper and Cypher have been nerfed coming up in this new update. Now, that has a lot of implications that we'll talk about in this video, but I'm just kind of sad because the nerfs I'm not super happy about. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Please like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, as it does really help me out a lot. And yeah, let me know what you think about this video, about me kind of talking about patch updates and updates to agents and how I might think that affects pro play and casual play. I would love to hear your feedback. As you know, I just like talking about this kind of stuff. Anyways, without further delay, let's get into it. All right, if we look at this agent patch notes 8.08, Chamber gets some new voice lines, which is cool, but here we go to the Cypher nerfs. So his trap wires, when an enemy triggers it and he gets a kill, he's allowed to get another trap wire to rearm, and that time is increased from 1 second to 2 seconds. Not necessarily the biggest deal in the world, in my opinion, as it did kind of rearm kind of fast. So I think this is like an appropriate nerf if you want to target Cypher's strengths. But honestly, I kind of thought that Cypher was in a pretty good spot, and I really liked having Cypher back in the meta because we have been in a Killjoy meta for a really long time. So having a competitive Sentinel looked really cool, but alas, they are nerfing him. Now, the one nerf that I think is super annoying and I think is really bad, and I think it kind of goes a little bit in line with the smoke dissipate sound timing. Enemies will now hear looping audio when they're actively being watched by Cypher's spy cam. So it's kind of similar to Yoru's ult. When a Yoru is near you, you'll hear that like, but you won't get the visuals like you will for Yoru, but you'll get a sound. And I just think that kind of kills skill expression with Cypher. One of the best things that I love about Cyphers is how creative are Cypher setups. Do they know and expect a certain hit? How do they use kill trips? Are they playing against a gecko? Are they playing like anti-wingman trips? Like, all of these different setups are super cool and super unique. And to go along with that, there are spy cams that are just super nice. NRG did not play super well this past weekend and have not really looked super great at all this season. But I do have to comment that Marv's camera in Lotus's A site tree was really sneaky, and he got a ton of vision, and EG just didn't know that they were being watched for quite a long time. And I think that is super nice and useful, and it rewards players for great positioning and not constantly flipping in and out of their camera, as it does make noise when it triggers. So I'm quite annoyed by this. I think this lowers the skill expression from Cyphers and just kind of benefits more of the casual crowd. I know, again, that Riot wants to balance more towards the casual crowd, and that's cool and all. And I will admit the smoke change is useful. Don't get me wrong, but again, skilled players didn't really need to know it. I think this might be a little too far, and I think it really hinders Cyphers, just like I said, creativity. Moving on to Viper though, man, these nerfs are so not the way that I would have targeted it. I was a part of a podcast this past weekend that was just released. It's called Exit Frag, with a few other fellow Valorant content creators. And one of the things that we were talking about was Viper and how we would balance them. I said in order to really target Viper, you need to release a competitor against her. And Harbor is supposed to be that, but Harbor is very limited in where he is. Wherever Harbor's wall comes from, he's there, whereas Viper has global range. So you need a competitor for that. I think lowering the smoke time, not exactly the best way to hit her. I guess you can say that by having a more minimum fuel to activate the smoke in itself, that means her timings will be less often, so she'll have less iterations to go through. And because it's only up for 12 seconds now, that window gets even more narrow, so you kind of have less question marks put into play by where the Viper is at based off just fuel management, which I guess is like an okay thing in my opinion, but Now the one that I think is really bad is the Poison Cloud. Her Q can only be picked up during the buy phase. Now this to me just absolutely kills any Viper skill expression whatsoever. One of the most unique things that we saw about Viper was how people were learning to reposition her smoke and use that to take space. A prime example that I really think about was Zest when he was playing for DRX last year on Split. He would have a Cypher smoke lineup on attack to cover the cross, usually where a Sage wall would go. And after his team scales onto site, he would pick up his orb and move it to halfway onto site to cover the peek out from CT. And I just thought that slight reposition with that Viper tech was so smart. It won DRX so many rounds and nobody else was doing it at the time. And then you come into this year where you have Sentinels, especially I think about Zelsis, who would do a very similar smoke, but instead they would throw it to cover the B main entrance. So it puts question marks on whether or not an enemy team or Viper will pop out of that smoke since it's deeper into sight. And that was a really great adaptation. And of course they would either block off CT, block off that same mark as Zest did, or put on the spike for post plant. Either way, I think picking up your Q allowed so much flexibility for Viper and allowed her to reposition. And I think this will really hinder her a lot, especially on maps like Breeze and Icebox. Say you give your default retake wall on B now, and instead of being able to move your smoke and be an anchor on that B site, you can't really use it as flexibly, which kind of sucks a lot in my opinion. Now the second nerf, which is the snake bite, reducing the charges from 2 to 1, I think that is a little bit more understandable. It's still not what I would have done in my opinion, but I still get it nonetheless. And although they gave us 1 extra second, Viper has just been getting slashed on her kit over and over again. And this just reminds me of the early Jet nerfs that we would have, where they would just take away power from Jet's kit that wasn't really the problem in my opinion. Like for example, Jet, she used to have 3 smokes, 2 updrafts, dash that didn't have a timer at all, and it was instant, and her knives. And I don't know how people didn't think that she was broken. I thought she was broken upon release, and she has a floating passive that no other agent in the game has. So I'm just saying that, like, I was like, dude, Jet's broken, and everyone's like, no, Jet sucks, no one will play her, and the Wardell went crazy. But anyways, then they slowly gutted Jet, right? They took away 1 smoke, and then they made their smokes from 7 seconds to 4 seconds, now like 2.5 seconds. They took away one of her updrafts. The dash is like super gutted compared to what it used to be, and the knives, you can't right click reset, all of those things. And like, it took them so long to just hit her dash and her knives, but they kept focusing on the other things. And I think this is the same thing that they're doing to Viper, and it really sucks. And until we get a very good wall controller, Viper will still be played. And this is where we'll talk about like how the impact to pro play will come around. I think this won't necessarily change pro play too much, but it does suck a lot because of when the patch is released. Right now, teams are finishing out the regular split or getting ready for playoffs and ready to qualify for Shanghai. So here's the thing, if Shanghai is played on the current patch, which I don't know if it will, but the playoffs will, then you are either heading to Shanghai on this new patch where Viper is nerfed, or you're playing on the old patch and coming back from Shanghai playing on the new patch where Viper is nerfed. And that just gives a benefit to all the teams that do not qualify for Shanghai, because they will have that 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks even, to practice and get ready, and then they can work out the kinks coming into stage 2, which I think is more important because it's qualification to champions. So there could reasonably be a really good argument for some people willing to sack playoffs and not try to qualify for Shanghai, just because of how punishing that this can be. And the reason why I say it's very punishing is because of how tight the schedule is, and we've seen it from what happened to a lot of the teams that went to Madrid. Pretty much every team that came back from Madrid has struggled. A lot of their team play does not look as good. You look at Gen G, you look at Sentinels, their team play and the coordination does not look as good and clean as it was before. Their chemistry doesn't look as good. There's just like something off, something missing. Sentinels map pool is definitely a struggle right now. Harming Core looks like they got exposed as a team that could not mid-round. At least they're starting to mid-round a little bit now, but like still, all of those things they were not able to work on because they were just straight into split 1, whereas all the other teams that did not make it were really able to flesh out their map pools, flesh out agent pools. You see the rise of BBL, Foot, and EMEA, and then you go to Pacific, and then you have DRX. I think DRX is the perfect example, even though Bang came in kind of late, but still they had a lot of time to build out this and flesh out this map pool. So these nerfs coming in at this time is really big in my opinion. So I don't know what the direction that teams will pick going into playoffs, but it's something to keep in mind about this nerf. And why am I sad about this? Well, I am a Viper main, and it's just sucks to see your girl get constantly nerfed. I know and I understand that we've been in an Omen Viper meta, especially in pro play, where Viper has been the most dominant agent in the game. That's why Les is considered one of the best players in the game, because he's one of the best Vipers. But Viper fits such a unique niche of being a controller sentinel hybrid that no other agent really fills. Astra kinda, maybe you could argue. Cryo, for example, plays her like a controller sentinel, but no one can do what Viper can do. So by knocking down her kit, she will still be played. And I think the argument is like Sky, for example, right? Obviously, we saw a very large shift in the meta coming into split 1 with many teams not playing Sky, but you still see teams running the Sky on specific maps and having great success. I think about Crew on Split with Heat on Sky, and they had so much value from their Sky flashes. You see teams that struggle without having that information in Dog, for example, like Fnatic with their Split comp where they're running almost no info with the Breach on Leo. Great for site hits, but they struggle getting onto site effectively because they lack info. So teams who are still able to work around the Sky, or you even see adaptations on Bind running double initiator with the Gecko, she's still very, very strong and very good. Her kit's still very good, even with the nerfs. And the same can be said about Viper. It's just fundamentally the way the agents are designed, their kits are still always going to be relevant and they will be played, especially with the current map pool with Breeze and Icebox being in there. Viper is still going to be the solo controller there if teams are not running a Harbor. So that's just my thoughts on the Viper nerf. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about the Viper nerfs and what you think will affect VCT. Do you think teams will be sacking Shanghai? I'm really curious if anyone else thinks that, because I think it might be a really, really relevant thing for some of these teams. Because yes, everybody wants to win a trophy, but not getting any rewards for making a run at Masters feels really bad. For example, Gen G, although they made it deep and made it all the way to the grand finals and lost, the only points that they got were their points from winning kickoff. And it's like, yeah, 3 points for winning kickoff and 3 points for winning Madrid, but that's kind of the same thing as getting a win off of DFM, GE, and lead. So, and champion points are only rewarded for the 4th slots because the first 3 seeds in playoffs are guaranteed into champs. So I feel like Shanghai might be not as hype as it could have been just because of how the system works. But again, let me know down below in the comments about all of this stuff and your thoughts. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, stay hydrated. Peace.